Young-hoon had eliminated men for lesser crimes than wasting his time. But the woman who walked into Hwanggeum-sung 30 minutes past 8, wearing a red dress that announced courtroom dominance and an expression that said she'd already cross-examined this entire evening in her head and found it lacking, didn't even pretend to apologize. She just studied him, glanced at the private room's chandelier, studied him again, and opened with, "Your mother's profile said 6 feet. You're 5'11", Max. We starting this relationship with perjury?" Before we dive in, please subscribe by telling me where you are watching from. Now let's begin. The first thing people usually noticed about Young-hoon was that he looked like he could sign your death warrant with a Mont Blanc and still make his 9 p.m. reservation. The second thing they noticed was the dragon-wrapped dagger tattoo crawling up his neck like it was trying to escape from beneath his perfectly pressed Tom Ford suit. The third thing, if they survived long enough to register a third thing, was that his eyes were darker than Seoul's polluted night sky and twice as suffocating. The kind of dark that suggested he'd witnessed horrors that would send normal people straight to a psychiatric ward for a decade. Tonight, those eyes were fixed on his whiskey glass like it contained instructions for escaping this particular circle of hell. How did his life come to this? 31 blind dates, 31 soul-crushing evenings of manufactured conversation with women who either wanted to rehabilitate him like a charity case, feared him like a natural disaster, or treated him like a particularly dangerous Instagram aesthetic for their followers. Rita Johnson arrived 30 minutes late in a red dress that turned heads across the restaurant, not because it was revealing, but because it was the kind of dress a woman wore when she knew exactly who she was. She slid into the booth without apology, dropped her bag beside her, and looked at Young-hoon with the cool assessment of someone deciding whether he was worth her time. "You're not 6'2", she said. Young-hoon blinked. "Excuse me? Your profile says 6'2". You're 6 foot, maybe 6'1" in those boots." She picked up the menu without breaking eye contact. "If you're lying about your height, what else are you lying about?" He leaned back, trying to regain control of a conversation that had started without his permission. "I'm a dangerous man, Rita. You should be careful." She didn't even flinch. "I've represented mobsters, cartel lieutenants, and a guy who tried to bribe a federal judge with a suitcase full of lobsters. Your brooding doesn't scare me." She flagged down a server. "I'll have the galbajim, extra banchan." Young-hoon stared at her. Women usually either ran or swooned. Rita Johnson was doing neither. "So," she said, folding her hands on the table, "have you considered therapy? Or is this whole crime lord thing a permanent lifestyle choice?" His jaw tightened. "I don't need therapy." Everyone needs therapy, especially men who build their entire identity around being intimidating. She tilted her head. "Let me guess. Rough childhood, absent father, turned pain into power? You don't know anything about me. I know you're sitting here trying to decide if I'm brave or stupid." She smiled. "Neither. I'm just someone who's spent 10 years in courtrooms staring down prosecutors who think they can break me. You're not special, Young-hoon. You're just another man who thinks intensity equals depth." The server arrived with her banchan. She picked up her chopsticks and started eating like this was a normal Tuesday. Young-hoon felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Offense, intrigue, and the uncomfortable realization that Rita Johnson might be the first person in years who wasn't afraid of him. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "Good." She dipped kimchi into some jang. "I hate being predictable." Young-hoon stared at her, his jaw tight. "How did you find me?" Rita set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. "Your mother found me. Through an international matchmaking service. The deluxe package, apparently. His face went blank. What? She sent a dossier. Rita reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a manila folder, thick as a phone book. She slid it across the table. Titled, My Son, A Work in Progress. Young-hoon opened it. The first page listed his childhood peanut allergy in bold red letters. The second detailed his favorite color, navy blue, with fabric swatches attached. There were report cards from elementary school, a grainy photo of him at a piano recital, scowling at age 7, and at the bottom, a handwritten note in his mother's shaky script. Please see past the anger. He's a good boy underneath. Something cracked inside him. A sound escaped his throat. Raw, broken, unfamiliar. He was laughing. Actually laughing. The first time in 6 years. Rita watched him, her expression soft. She really loves you. She's insane, he managed between breaths. She's your mother. Same thing. The laughter died slowly, leaving something fragile in its wake. Young-hoon looked at Rita, this absurd woman who'd walked into his life with a dossier and no fear. I'm not a good man, he said quietly. People around me die. That's what I do. That's who I am. Rita tilted her head, considering. People around me go to prison. We all have occupational hazards. This isn't a joke. I'm not joking. She leaned forward, her voice steady. You think you're the first broken man I've met? I've represented killers, drug lords, human traffickers. You're not special, Young-hoon. You're just sadder. He flinched. No one had spoken to him like this in years. No one dared. Your mother sent me a dossier, Rita continued, because she believes there's something worth saving. And honestly, after reading 47 pages about your obsession with military history and your habit of organizing spice racks alphabetically, I'm curious enough to find out if she's right. Young-hoon stared at the folder, at his mother's handwriting, at this ridiculous, impossible woman across from him. You're going to regret this, he said. Rita smiled. Probably, but I've made worse decisions before breakfast. Young-hoon stared at his phone at 6:47 a.m., the text glowing like an accusation. Your mother gave me your number. Coffee? He showed it to Seo-jun, who nearly choked on his rice. Boss, with respect, your mother is terrifying. By 9 a.m., Cafe Veritas in Gangnam was empty. Young-hoon had Seo-jun clear out the handful of customers, mostly his own men pretending to read newspapers. The cafe was one of 7 legitimate fronts he operated, this one specializing in overpriced lattes and suspiciously large cash deposits. The espresso machine was Italian, expensive, and had been used exactly 4 times in 3 years. Rita arrived in jeans and a blazer, her hair pulled back, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She surveyed the space with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen too many corporate facades, then locked onto the spotless espresso machine. Americano, she said flatly. Because that machine looks too clean for a real cafe. Young-hoon felt something crack in his chest. Respect, maybe. Or fear. You're observant. I'm annoyed, Rita corrected, sliding into a seat. Your mother ambushed me at a pharmacy. Now I'm here because apparently you've been on 31 failed dates, and she thinks I'm the solution. Seo-jun, hiding behind the counter, made a strangled noise. Young-hoon sat across from her, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. 32, actually. There was one last week. Why do you keep going? Rita asked, stirring her coffee without drinking it. You clearly don't want to be there. He considered lying. He was good at it, had built an empire on calculated deception, but something about Rita's directness made honesty feel less dangerous than usual. Because my mother is the only person I'm afraid of, he admitted. Rita laughed, sharp and genuine. It was the first real sound in the cafe all morning. Smart man. For a moment, they just sat there, a crime lord and a burned-out analyst in a fake coffee shop. And Young-hoon realized his mother might have actually been right about something. Not about marriage, but about Rita being different. So, Rita said, finally sipping her coffee, how bad is the money laundering situation here? Scale of 1 to Ponzi scheme. Seojun dropped a cup. Over the next 5 days, Rita dragged Young-hoon through Seoul like he was a sulking teenager on a mandatory field trip. She treated his criminal empire with all the reverence of a particularly annoying day job, waving off his protests about meetings and territory disputes with an airy, "Your subordinates can handle it. You pay them enough, don't you?" She forced him to be her tour guide, which was hilarious, considering he'd lived in Seoul for 30 years and couldn't remember the last time he'd done anything remotely touristy. They ate binde teok at Gwangjang Market, Rita's eyes lighting up as she bit into the crispy mung bean pancake like it was heaven itself. Young-hoon watched her more than he ate, fascinated by how someone could find such pure joy in something so ordinary. "You're staring again," she said around a mouthful of food. "I'm making sure you don't choke." Liar. They watched the sunrise at Namsan Tower, Rita bundled in one of his oversized hoodies because she'd somehow forgotten Korea had actual seasons. Her box braids were pulled into a high ponytail, and she looked nothing like the woman who'd threatened to break his fingers 5 days ago. She looked soft, young, happy. "This is nice," she said quietly, her breath fogging in the early morning air. Young-hoon didn't trust himself to speak, so he just nodded. They wandered through Bukchon Hanok village, Rita stopping every 10 feet to take photos of traditional houses and stray cats, and him when he wasn't paying attention. She laughed when he fumbled with street food, unused to eating anything that didn't come on fine china with 3 forks he'd never use. He'd forgotten what her laugh sounded like without the edge of defiance in it. Somewhere between the 3rd day and the 4th, something shifted. Young-hoon realized he'd stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes. Stopped mentally calculating threats and exits and contingencies. For the first time since Young-jae died, he felt something that wasn't rage or emptiness or the cold satisfaction of violence. He felt peace. It terrified him more than any rival ever had, because peace was a luxury men like him couldn't afford. Peace made you soft, made you careless, made you forget that happiness was just another thing that could be taken away. But Rita kept smiling, kept pulling him toward the next adventure, and Young-hoon let himself pretend, just for a little while, that he was someone who deserved this. The Han River stretched before them like molten gold, the sunset painting the water in shades of amber and blood. Rita sat beside Young-hoon on the weathered bench, close enough that she could feel the tension radiating from his body, far enough that he could still pretend he had walls. "Tell me," she said quietly. "Not the empire, not the throne. Tell me about the man who built them." His jaw tightened. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came, low and rough with a pain that 6 years hadn't dulled. "I had a brother, Min-jun." The name cracked something open in his chest. "He was 19, kind in ways I never was. He believed people were fundamentally good, Believed I was good, even after everything I'd become. Young-hoon's hands clenched into fists on his thighs. The Jopak didn't just kill him. They made it last, made sure I knew it was a message, that anyone I loved was a target. Rita's breath caught. She watched his profile against the dying light, the beautiful, terrible mask of a man who'd spent 6 years burying his humanity. His last words were, "Don't let the Empire consume what's left of your soul." Young-hoon's laugh was bitter. Broken. I built the Empire anyway, made it so vast, so untouchable, that no one would ever dare take from me again. But he was right. I've been consumed. There's been nothing left to protect for 6 years. Rita's hand found his, her fingers threading through his with a certainty that surprised them both. "My mother died when I was 22, she said, her voice steady despite the old ache. "Cancer. The treatments drained everything. Our savings, our home, our hope. She died anyway and left behind medical debt that destroyed what was left of my family. That's why I became a lawyer, not for justice, for revenge against a system that makes you choose between life and poverty." Young-hoon turned to her then, really seeing her, not the prosecutor who'd challenged him, but the woman shaped by her own scars. "We're both architects of our own prisons," Rita whispered. His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Maybe," he said, something fragile breaking through the ice in his eyes. "But for the first time in 6 years, I want to remember what freedom felt like." The karaoke room smelled like soju and bad decisions, and Rita was absolutely murdering Halo with the kind of confidence that came from 3 cocktails and 0 shame. Young-hoon leaned back against the velvet booth, watching her spin in circles with the microphone, her laughter filling every corner of the cramped space. This was day 9, and somewhere between the terrible singing and the way she kept trying to make him join her, he'd forgotten what his life was supposed to look like. His phone lit up on the table. Once. Twice. 7 times in rapid succession. Rita didn't notice, too busy attempting a run that would have made Beyoncé file a restraining order. But Young-hoon saw Seo-jun's name flashing like a warning siren, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. He stepped into the hallway, the music muffled behind the door. "Talk." "The Crimson Lotus hit our operation in Insadong." Seo-jun's voice was stripped of its usual smoothness, raw with something close to fear. "2 dead. They torched the whole location. And Young-hoon, they left a message." His grip tightened on the phone. "What message?" "Tell the American she chose the wrong side. They know about her." The world tilted. Not a metaphor. The actual hallway seemed to shift beneath his feet. Kang Dae-sung knew. The psychopath who'd been circling his territory for months, looking for any weakness to exploit, had found the one thing that could actually destroy him. He ended the call without another word and pushed back into the karaoke room. Rita had collapsed onto the booth, flushed and breathless, holding out the microphone to him with that brilliant, unguarded smile. "Your turn. Come on, you can't hide all night." She stopped. The smile died on her lips. Whatever she saw in his face made her go very still. This wasn't the man who'd been watching her sing 30 seconds ago. This was someone else entirely. Something else. His expression had hardened into angles she didn't recognize, his eyes flat and cold as a winter lake. The muscles in his jaw worked like he was chewing glass. "We're leaving." His voice came out wrong, controlled, lethal. "What happened?" "Now, Rita." She stood slowly, and for the first time since she'd stumbled into his life with her ridiculous questions and her inability to mind her own business, she looked genuinely frightened. Of him. Rita's refusal to board the private jet wasn't dramatic. It was clinical. She stood in Young-hoon's penthouse office, litigation bag in hand, while his security team waited by the door like silent sentinels. The jet was fueled. The flight plan was filed. Chicago was 3 hours away. "No," she said simply. Young-hoon's jaw tightened. He'd dismantled empires with less resistance than this woman was giving him right now. "Rita, this isn't negotiable. Kang doesn't make empty threats." She set her bag on his desk with a deliberate thud. "Neither do I." Her eyes held that same steel he'd seen in the courtroom, the look that made opposing counsel fold. "I've been threatened by cartel enforcers who put severed fingers in my mailbox. I've had dirty cops follow me home and prosecutors with god complexes try to bury me in contempt charges. Your rival is just another bully with bad strategy." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Young-hoon stared at her, genuinely thrown. He'd expected fear, maybe defiance born of ignorance. Instead, he was looking at someone who'd walked through fire and learned to appreciate the heat. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, they felt hollow. "I understand perfectly." Rita opened her litigation bag, pulling out a tablet and legal pad covered in notes. "Kang operates like every other criminal I've prosecuted, through fear, leverage, and the assumption that violence is the only language that matters. But violence leaves evidence, patterns, vulnerabilities." She looked up at him. "I can dismantle him the same way I've dismantled drug kingpins and corrupt officials, by making him legally radioactive." Young-hoon felt something shift in his chest. He'd spent years surrounding himself with soldiers, enforcers, people who understood power through the barrel of a gun. Rita was offering something different, a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. "You're proposing we use litigation as warfare," he said slowly. "I'm proposing we use your resources and my expertise to make Kang wish he'd never heard your name." Rita's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "I don't run from bullies, Young-hoon. I bury them in motions and make them beg for plea deals." For the first time in years, Young-hoon felt genuinely impressed. "Then we meet with Kang," he said. "But we do it your way." Young-hoon stepped into the cavernous darkness of the abandoned shipping facility, his footsteps echoing off rusted metal beams. The smell of salt and decay hung thick in the air. He'd walked into dozens of situations like this before. Tense negotiations in hostile territory. But tonight felt different. Tonight, he was bait. Overhead lights flickered on with a metallic clang, revealing Kang Ji-won standing at the center of a semicircle of armed men. The crime lord's expensive suit looked absurdly out of place against the industrial decay surrounding them. He smiled, the expression never reaching his cold eyes. "Mr. Park, punctual as always." Kang's voice carried easily across the warehouse floor. "I appreciate a man who respects his appointments, even when they're walking into their own funeral." Young-hoon stopped 20 feet away, hands visible at his sides. "You wanted to talk. I'm here." "Talk," Kang laughed, a harsh sound that made several of his men shift uncomfortably. "No, Mr. Park. I'm here to deliver an ultimatum. You have 48 hours to surrender your territory in Gangnam. All of it. In exchange, I'll allow your American lawyer to return to Chicago with all her fingers attached. A generous offer, considering." "Considering what?" "Considering I could just kill you both right now and take what I want." Kang gestured casually to his armed men. "But I'm a businessman. I prefer clean transitions." The warehouse door crashed open with explosive force. Rita strode through the entrance, Seojun half a step behind her. She walked with the confidence of someone entering a courtroom, not a trap. Her heels clicked against concrete as she approached, briefcase in hand, completely ignoring the weapons trained on her. "Mr. Kang." She stopped beside Young-hoon, setting her briefcase on a rusted barrel. "I'm glad you could make it. Saves me a trip to your office." Kang's smile faltered. "You should have stayed in America, Ms. Valdez." "And miss this?" Rita opened the briefcase with practiced precision, pulling out a thick folder. "These are copies. The originals are already with 3 separate parties. Bank records from your Cayman accounts, wire transfers to Prosecutor Han, and my personal favorite, the ballistics report from Judge Kim's assassination that matches a weapon registered to one of your shell companies." The warehouse went absolutely silent. Rita held up her phone, screen glowing. "Live upload, 60-minute delay. If anything happens to me, to Young-hoon, or to anyone I care about, this goes public. Not just to the police, to every news organization, every government agency, every rival who'd love to see you fall. You won't be a kingpin anymore, Mr. Kang. You'll be a federal case." Kang's face had gone pale beneath the harsh warehouse lights. "So here's my counteroffer," Rita continued, her voice deadly calm. "You walk away, tonight, forever, or I end you with paperwork." Rita's hands stopped shaking somewhere between her 3rd piece of tteokbokki and her 2nd shot of soju. The pojangmacha's plastic walls flapped in the night breeze, Seoul's neon bleeding through like watercolors on wet paper. "Your form was terrible," Young-hoon said, watching her demolish the spicy rice cakes with the same intensity she'd used on Kang's men. "But effective. I took 1 self-defense class in law school." Rita grabbed another shot. "The instructor said I had anger management potential." He caught her wrist before she could down it, his thumb finding her racing pulse. The gold band on her finger caught the light, his grandmother's ring, placed there in a penthouse while his empire burned and rebuilt itself around them. "My brother told me something. Before." Young-hoon's voice went quiet in a way that made the pojangmacha owner pretend to be very interested in his inventory. "He said I'd know when I found something worth more than survival." Rita set down the shot glass. "Your mother called while you were bleeding on my Louboutins. We're having dinner tomorrow at 7. She's making japchae and judging my chopstick grip. Rita, also, we need to discuss your 5-year plan." She speared another tteokbokki with surgical precision. "Because I'm not doing this forever. The violence part, I mean. The rest." Her cheeks flushed, and it wasn't the soju. "The rest has potential." Young-hoon pulled her close, tasting gochugaru and something that felt dangerously like hope. "What if I told you I want to make parts of it legitimate? That I need a lawyer who knows how to weaponize corporate structures? I'd say you're finally thinking with your brain instead of your trauma." Rita's smile turned sharp. "And that you're buying me much better shoes." They walked through Seoul holding hands, past the Han River where his father's body had surfaced, past the building where he'd signed his first blood contract. 32 blind dates had led him here, to a woman who pepper-sprayed crime lords and cross-referenced RICO statutes like other people did crosswords. His last blind date. His only choice. 6 months later, Rita stood before his entire organization in a conference room that smelled like expensive coffee and laundered money, teaching them the fine art of legitimate fronts and legal liability shields. His mother was in the corner, planning a wedding with the strategic precision of a 5-star general. Young-hoon watched his lawyer girlfriend fiancé explain corporate veil piercing to men who'd once pierced actual people, and thought his brother would have loved her audacity. Some blind dates end in coffee. His ended in revolution. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more tales of unexpected romance and dangerous redemptions.